Welcome back to the Life of Tash. I'm Tash. Today I'm here with my good friend Phil, who is bringing kink out of the shadows with his event and community, KitKat. Thanks for joining us, Phil.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
So first question, what is KitKat?
KitKat is a sexy BDSM themed dance party, which started about 4 years ago on the back of an ex-partner and I having an idea for a party. And it's evolved into something a lot bigger now, where we're throwing events once, twice a year, invite only, with a curated crowd and with a heavy emphasis on safety, music and art.
And if you were going to describe, the ideal KitKat person, who's KitKat for?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if you get 100 people, 20 of those people vanilla, 20 of those people open, poly, go to swings parties and sex parties, etc. It's for the 60 people in the middle. What are those 60 people? For me, they are the people that are in normal jobs. Don't like the word normal, but everyday jobs. And, I'm of the opinion that everyone's got a little bit of kink in them. Everyone, sex is fun, sex is enjoyable, sex is pleasure. So I saw a gap where that 60% of those 60 people don't have anywhere to go. To go to a sex party is a big step. And I think there's a perception that those sex parties are, they're a little bit dingy, they're a little bit in the shadows, they're a little bit, some of the people that go are a little bit ropeable. So I saw a gap where there's an opportunity for inverted commas normal people to come to an event and have a good time, but don't have the pressure of what is perceived that goes on at sex parties.
I mean, it is a good point. I think about what's on offer, especially in Sydney, which isn't, if we look at a world-based scale, it's not huge. But there is, you kind of got, as you said, the swinger parties or the clubs. Even the BDSM world, I have, newbie clients all the time asking me where can I go to kink socials? And it's actually a very hard thing to recommend because one, we don't actually have that many. The one more, I'd say decent one is a list only. You've got to get through being in the community. So it's where does someone who's kind of interested in but not ready to dive in, where can you start? So it's a really interesting space to play with. I think that in-between space is where you're kind of targeting, I guess.
It was funny when we did the party, and it was just a birthday party, and it was just a different idea. Let's have a theme. And everyone absolutely frauded for it. I just couldn't believe it. And, I've done events, I've done yacht parties. I've always been an organizer of parties and stuff like that. And just to see everyone really embrace it and dive into it, I was like, hang on, there's something here. And I remember one of the girls who attended, she just said, look, and she really went all out with the outfit. And she just said, look, I felt safe. Because I knew I could wear this and feel safe. And that's when I realized there was a gap in that market.
And I think, a very good point to highlight is you've created a very beautiful atmosphere at the parties, which people have come up to me afterwards to mention it is probably the best atmosphere party I've ever been to. It's really elevated in that level. How, and I'm assuming, it has been a conscious effort for you to create that because you've posted on Instagram before the events, expectations, and making sure that safety bit is understood. And I think about kink parties I've been to, I think about sex parties I've been to, unless they're smaller ones, but I'm talking about large scale events. I've never really seen that circulated so forcefully maybe. Sometimes it's assumed people know, which is terrible because yes, some people do know, but newbies don't know.
Yeah.
And so I guess what made you think when you started it, I need to create this, and how were you going to do it?
So specifically when it came to KitKat, I basically made the decision that safety was the first most important thing. And again, maybe not as conscious about how important that was going to be. But having spoken to some female friends, just the enthusiasm and comfort that they had for the event, knowing that every guy is going to be vetted, or every person's going to be vetted, or no one's getting an invite unless they're not a degree of separation, and then there's no cameras, no phones. You could just, I know it's hard to explain, but I can almost sense like just the lack of stress or the comfort, or that's the right word, peace of mind, or just. And then what I realized quite quickly is they knew they were going to be safe.
That's what I was going to say. You're creating, because, we talk about in BDSM, we're creating a safe vessel, a safe space for people to be their authentic selves, to do their work, to do whatever it is. So I think what you've done is you've created a safe vessel for people to feel like, okay, I'm safe here to be my authentic self, because if anyone's here, they've been vetted. And I think what you said about, if someone you don't know personally, and when you say to the other person, the responsibility on you is very powerful, because it's easy when someone say, yeah, I vet for that person. But when you say you're going to get kicked out of this, and people know what a special thing it is they've become a community of, they don't want to lose their place, which makes people think 3 times. They're like, I need to be sure this person's not going to muck up my spot here.
Yeah.
And so when people know that, and especially as you said, with females, it's creating such a safe space for them, which is not common. It's not common for females to find such a safe place.
Yeah. So in terms of some tough conversations that I had to have with people about why they're not invited or why they haven't been invited, I'm more comfortable having those conversations now. But initially, there was conversations to be had with certain people where you're like, you don't respect women, or this perception, like they're going to be half naked, or I'm going to fuck girls, or they're all sluts, and I'm like, no, that's not how it works here. So it's been quite educational, or not actually, say eye-opening, in terms of how I see how men treat women. And then the knock-on effect for me has been, shit, women aren't safe. Yeah. And having more conversations with more females and female friends, realizing that when they go out, just normal nights out, like they're getting groped, they're getting attention that they don't want. And I don't know, I was like probably most blokes just not really aware of it. As a guy who sees himself as a respectable human being and respectful to women, and the people I hang around with and associate are the same, I didn't really see the uglier side of nights out. So when I started this event, and then having to say to people like, hey, I don't know this guy, do you vouch for him? And they get that as you say, oh yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's fine. And I go, no. Like, if this guy touches anyone inappropriate, if they are leery, if they get too drunk, they're out. And if they're out, you're out. And then you can see it in people's eyes. They're like, oh, they think. And then I just straight away know, okay, that person's not coming. And it happened way more than I would have liked to have thought. So, yeah, the safety thing obviously became pretty paramount.
Has it changed consequently some of your male friendships?
Yes. Categorically, yes.
Have you lost friends over it?
No, and this is the interesting thing, right? So one of the messages I send out to people is, I can't remember exactly how I word it, but I say, hey, look, Dave could be a great guy, but this may not be the event for Dave. Dave might get too drunk. Dave may not be able to handle his drugs. He may not be able to control himself. And I'm not saying Dave's a bad dude. This just isn't the event for Dave. So how I frame that with some of my friends now is, this just isn't the event for you. And most of them understand that and take that on board, and they just don't ask. But I've had to have some tricky conversations. In terms of, have I lost any friends? Not that I can think of. I would say there's people that have not been invited and I would not necessarily reach out to me anymore, but they're just social friends that don't really care.
Have you seen a shift from when you first ran Kit Kat to, for example, the last one? Has there been, like, obviously you've said people are noticing the sense of safety and all that. Has there been a big shift from where the crowd has started even to where they are now?
I'd like to think so. From the second Kit Kat to the last one, the third one, I didn't really speak too much about safety, or it was more very to individuals as I messaged them about the event, or they messaged me. Kit Kat 3, it was front and center, and I talked about it a lot publicly and on the Instagram page, and I think people just generally knew it was a big part of it. So yeah, I think there's definitely been a shift. I think there's also a tolerance. This is a good thing. I think women know when they go to the event now that they will be safe. Anyone who hasn't been has commented afterwards and said, "Hey, look, I've heard this, but now I've experienced it." But people who have been to it beforehand, I can see there's a confidence about them. They know they're safe, right? They know if anyone is inappropriate, they'll be gone in a second. And then they can get a little, like this one person I have in my mind where she went to Kit Kat 2, really enjoyed it, but Kit Kat 3, I could see her, she had let her hair down, and she was like mingling more and just absolutely was in her element. And the same thing with the guys. The guys who go to it know it's a big word to say, but they know they're honored to go to it. And I see them embracing it as well. Like I saw one guy in particular, I think a girl was struggling with something in her shoe and he didn't know her, but he went over and said, "Hey, you okay? Do you want me to help?" I'm not saying he wouldn't have done that normally, but I just think the expectations, I think the men know the expectation of them when they're at the event is pretty high. And majority of them, most of them, 99% of them, play ball.
One thing I've noticed is that when you are like walking past people, and even if you don't know them, there's always like a friendly smile with each other, which is interesting because, if you're normally at a club and you're walking past a bunch of people you don't really know, there's almost like a standoff look or some sort of look or vibe. And it's really interesting that that's not there at all. Everyone's just, even if you don't know them, it's like we're all here together and like we're all here to like support this and have a good time and like be friendly.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really nice, the friendliness vibe to it is really nice.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I said this to someone recently about Kit Kat. When you strip it back, Kit Kat's about connection. And everything I do when it comes to my life in general, outside from work, outside Kit Kat, is I'm very passionate about human connection. And, when we go out on nights out to meet new people, to dance, you're looking for human connection, and that's what Kit Kat is. So I try and curate a crowd, like 350 people together that are all slightly on the same page, that are like-minded people, that think the same way, and there's an acceptance with that. And you end up curating a crowd, a community, to your point, where even though they don't know each other, they kind of know each other and therefore feel comfortable, and to your point, hopefully then a lot more friendly, enjoy it, and then either have friendships or good sex.
So obviously Kit Kat has taken its own journey, as we've just discussed. What has been like your journey or your journey in kink, and how would you kind of describe yourself in that world?
So of the 100 people, I would resonate with the 60. So I have been to sex parties and swinger parties in the past, but I would see myself as someone in that 60. So, in the end of the day, I'm an Irish guy who grew up in 1980s Ireland, which was, Catholicism and the Catholic Church pretty much ran the country. So when I came to Australia, I was 24. I look back now, actually, when I think about it, 20 years ago, different person. But my own journey, I don't know. I feel like I've always had a little bit of an adventurous side to me. It's funny, actually. I'll tell you a funny story. I lived in Coogee with two Irish guys, and we overlooked a house where it had a massive swimming pool, massive garden, beautiful place. But they used to have sex parties on Saturday nights. So we'd come back, and you'd see some outrageous things. And it was probably my first exposure to group sex or sex parties. And I mean, my friend, the guy I lived at the time, was like, we should call in and like with a bottle of whiskey and say hello. And I was like, they're not going to let us. They're definitely not going to welcome us. But it's something I still think about. And I think that, that kind of has always stayed with me, that I wanted to explore or at least go to something like that. So then I had a partner for about 7 years, and we basically decided to go on one of the adult websites, and we went to 1 or 2 sex parties. And that was more just, to be honest, it was more of a tick box exercise. It wasn't something she was overly interested in. It wasn't something I was overly interested in either, I don't think. It was fun. Box ticked and off you went. And then, I don't know, I think just before COVID, I met someone, and both of us were, I guess, interested in exploring it a little bit. And then Kick happened, right? And then I think that opened me to a world that I hadn't really known was there before. I mean, I had been to a sex party. I'd been in and around it, but I hadn't necessarily ever really dipped my toe into it. And then, made friends with you and people that were in that life and in that community, and kind of realized probably that the people were normal. And it's not, again, to go back to that Irish kind of upbringing, Catholic thought process. It's like, sex parties are seedy and dirty, and it's the wrong type of people at it. And then when you go to them, you realize, or when you've been involved in some of the community stuff, you realize most of them are just like every other person. They just got a little bit different kink, or they're interested in different things. So I think the Kit Kat experience has matured my view, and has maybe opened my mind a little bit. I think I've become maybe with age a little bit more comfortable with my sexuality. I don't shout on the rooftops that I go to some of these things, but I still resonate with the 60 people. I guess I'd probably say I'm just more confident in that, and less, I don't want to say shameful, but there would have been a point where I would have felt embarrassed or ashamed about the kink, or being a little bit more adventurous. Like, there'd be people, my friends, that would have no idea, but maybe they do, and they just don't tell me, and we don't talk about it. But there's other friends now I now have where they're in that community, and I'm just as much friends with them as my other friends. And I think I've just, with maturity, realised that.
Do you think that you've had personal healing through the journey of Kit Kat and by doing it?
Yeah, 100%. Kit Kat 2, the motivations for me to do it were wrong. I did it to seek validation from someone else without them knowing it. If you had asked me this question about 6 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, I would have given you a different answer to this. Kit Kat 2, I essentially did to make my ex-girlfriend proud. And she made a fleeting comment about me not being capable of doing it or not. And, it was a throwaway statement, but it stuck with me. And I was like, fuck you, I'm going to show you. And I did the event, and I remember feeling afterwards just hollow. Like I knew the event went really well. And I remember someone coming to me at the event and were like, you should be so proud of yourself. This is amazing. Like, look what you've done. Look what you've achieved. And I just didn't want it from that person. I wanted it from my ex. And I'm sure she did. I'm fairly certain she did. I just don't remember her doing it. And for a long time afterwards, I was just pretty empty about it. I was never not going to do another one. I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. And I didn't really understand it until probably about a few months back, when I realized, before Kit Kat 3, I realized the motivation. I was like, what am I going to do it again? And at that point I had realized the motivation to Kit Kat 2 wasn't right, and I was going to do another one for me, and it was going to be for no one else but for me. And I did it, and I had little moments at Kit Kat 3 to myself, and I was like super, super proud of it. because the journey from KitKat 2 to KitKat 3, from a personal point of view, a lot had happened in the year. So yeah, KitKat has been a big part of my personal growth. And then even now, when I look back and talking about this, and like my ex didn't realize that all I was looking for is validation, or all I was looking for was to say she was proud of me. So how is she to know that, right? So that's on me. It wasn't, but for a while I put that on her, and that's not fair.
It takes a lot of like self-introspection and self-awareness to acknowledge when our ego gets in the way. And even, with what I do in my work, I always think about, because I hold quite a lot of knowledge and an interesting career. Someone meets you, say you're a professional dominatrix. There can be a bit of, is my ego associated to this?
Yeah.
So sometimes I need to check. Sometimes I think in the past it was like, I know the reaction I'm going to get, people get intrigued by it. So I'm like, I have to be careful to keep, is this an ego thing driving this?
Yeah.
Now it's changed because my aim of my brand and what I do is to educate, empower, and de-shame.
Yeah.
So, and to normalize kink, so that people don't have to practice in the shadows, so that people aren't seen as other, that I'm just like a, inverted commas again, like normal, mum with, a husband and who's got other shit going on in their life. We're so keen to box someone up as into you're this or you're that and that's it. But there's like me as a professional dominatrix, there's me as a mother, there's me who's an entrepreneur running a business, there's me as a partner, there's me as a friend. There's so many facets to us, but it is important to make sure that where are we being driven from? We're being driven from what is really important to us, like education, providing a safe space for women, or are we being driven by a bit of ego at times? So I think that's really interesting that you saw the two shifts from this party is being run by an ego and this party was being run from a completely different view. And to be honest, I saw it at the end of the last one where it was just all the people involved, upstairs, and I could feel that energy from you. There was a completely different energy than I felt from you at the last one.
Yeah, thanks for noticing that. I just think about, if you had said to me when I first started it to where it is now, and I was saying to you, it's about safety and it's about community and it's about connection. It was about getting a lot of hot people together and having a party and having a good time. And then it just evolved to something else. But the journey from KitKat 2 to KitKat 3 for me, it's massive.
I know that you're very passionate about men's mental health as well, and you've said some really interesting insights about the interactions you've had with men because of KitKat.
Yeah.
Did one come before the other? Like, was it a men's mental health interest, or has that come from being more exposed to kink and this kind of community?
Look, I think my own interest in mental health and men's mental health has definitely peaked over the last couple of years. Again, just because I think as I get older, I get softer, and then I get more comfortable in talking about my own struggles or my own issues. I've heard a couple of times people think I'm brave for speaking about some of the things I speak about. I never ever think I'm brave, like never. I just say, oh, thank you. I'm just talking about how I feel or what's going on. And for me, it's a release. But again, over the last 12 months, my interest in mental health, particularly men's mental health, has definitely increased. Has KitKat been involved in that? Yeah, look, it's definitely had an impact. I think more from the point of understanding women's perspective. The safety thing, I talk about it a lot, right? And I've got some friends take the piss at me, going, oh, here you go again about safety. But I did not realize the importance of creating a safe space for your partner, for creating a safe space for your female friends, for creating a safe space for females that you don't know, just creating a safe space for females, like full stop. I never really appreciated that until this year. And one of the reasons would be also just for my own mental health, and my own journey from probably the last 12, 18 months where I was to where I am now. That journey of becoming your authentic self, like I struggled with that, and I probably struggled with that all my life. And I found, I use the word center a lot, but I found center late last year, and that's had a massive impact in my own life. But obviously, then I've not. It's like I use what's the analogy? I use the analogy of. It's almost like in some cases I've walked into a dark room and turned the light on and like just gone, wow, like I didn't see this before. And the safety for women has just been one of those. And to be honest, I'll speak a little bit about an ex-partner where our relationship, we thought we were good communicators, but we weren't. And I look back and look at my role in that. And my role was I didn't create safe space for my ex to be able to speak her truth. And I asked myself, why was that, right? And it's because I might not have wanted to hear that truth, or that truth may have actually meant we break up, or I'd be hurt, or I'd be upset. And realistically, then you're actually not in a safe space. It's like, because you're walking on eggshells, and it's not an authentic relationship, or you're not being authentic. And it took a pretty tough breakup to realize that. So that journey of mental health and men's mental health for me has all stemmed from that. I've always been interested in it, but probably, again, Kit Kat, a kind of a tough breakup has made me embrace my own mental health, my own shadow, my own ego, looking at myself and going, right, well, what am I responsible for? Where have I, what am I responsible for? Where could I have done better? And like, that's a tough conversation, right? And I am ego driven. So as a guy to kind of sit in the stillness, sit in the pain, sit in the anger, sit in the hurt and go, right, well, what did you do? And then having come through that and then realizing, shit, there's a lot of men in that situation. And then there's not a lot of men that have, well, I don't know a lot, but there's not enough men who have the comfort or to think about it, to talk about it loud, to ask themselves those questions. So, I started putting some posts up, and it was more at the time just for me, just to kind of put my words out, and because it was a way of release. But a lot of guys then would send me a message and go, "Hey mate, like words really resonate." It's what's interesting is it's when they see, like I see people look at the stories, and I'm not expecting people to comment or anything, but then they see me out on a night out, or they'll just come up to me and like almost whisper in my ear, like, "Phil, like that really resonated." And then it made me realize, like, from a men's health point of view, I think show me someone that says they're not struggling and they're lying, right? There's something going on for nearly everyone.
I definitely agree. There's not enough being done, in my opinion. And a friend of mine who's a psychologist who has done a lot of work with men said there's not enough being done, like work being done with men who are angry, with men. And he goes as far as saying with men who have been abusive. We kind of just put them aside in society. Maybe they're in jail, maybe they're in an anger management group, but no one's actually talking to them about why they're this way and why we have this problem in this country with things like domestic violence and stuff. And there's a lot of men out there who are walking around with a lot of trauma. Yeah. Yesterday I came across via a friend, someone who didn't know me through a very passing interaction through a mutual friend, ending up going on this rant and referring to me as this bitch, teach her a fucking lesson, this bitch, she's never going to amount to nothing. And it was so aggressive and so anger. First of all, my reaction was, oh my God, people like this exist still, because this is our age group, our wider social circle. But then my second brain just went to, this is not about me.
Yeah.
This person doesn't even know me. I've never even had interaction with this person. He has zero idea of who I am, and he has this much rage inside him. I'm like, that's about him.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's where we're going wrong with men here is we have a lot of men walking around maybe with trauma, maybe extremely angry, and no one's talking to them about it or giving them tools about what to do with it.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. Like, it's such an interesting time to be a man in, like, you know, the masculine and feminine, and like women are so stronger than now than they were and independent. That there's just a lot of men just don't know where their place is. You know, you got a shit ton of toxic masculinity. There's what is masculinity. It's a minefield. Mm-hmm. And I've had conversations with girlfriends. I've had conversations with people that I don't really know, and like everyone gets super edgy. And it's like everyone has a couple of conversations recently, even with some women I know, and like not really well. And you start the conversation and you can just see they're getting ready, like they're gonna pounce. I'm like, I'm not saying you haven't been treated right. I'm not saying whatever that ex person did. I'm not saying you deserve better money. I'm not saying, like, I'm not having that. For me, we're all equal, but there's a lack of acknowledgement. It's tricky. I need to be mindful of what I say also, but like I sometimes feel as like you've, from a female point of view, we've had it tough for centuries and centuries, so fuck you. Now you're on your, like, now you're going to feel it. I'm like, yeah, okay, get it, right, completely get it. But we both lose in that scenario. And I had this conversation with someone recently, and she eventually was like, I can see what your point is. Like, I'm not disagreeing with anything that you've said, but I'm just saying men need help. And for you to say, are you on your own, like, tough shit. Yeah. I was like, that's okay, fine. But what you don't realize is you lose out as well, because I was like, do you want a partner? Do you want to be around men? Do you want, not even from a sexual point of view, from a friendship point of view? It's like, yeah, of course. I was like, well, then you have to help as well. And I was like, you shouldn't have to. I was like, but we both need help. From men to improve, they need help from men and women.
But it's like with all movements, women got a lot of, advocates from the males that push things through for them. Like, whatever group is trying to push something through, the way that gets through is the outside groups supporting them. So men can never just make it on their own by themselves. They're going to need outside groups. They're going to need females as well supporting them in that journey. Looping it back to KitKat, I think that's something that you have, like, I think is shown there. Like, the men there, as you said, are a certain, no, I wouldn't say level, but like they are a bit more woke, maybe. Yeah. A bit more like, and again, that is rare.
Woke the word? Is woke the right word?
What?
Is woke the right word?
I don't. They're just more
respectful,
but also aware. Yeah. I think aware of how they might come across to a female there.
Yeah.
So I do think that is, something like KitKat is helping and giving men a bit more of a platform, a bit more of a knowledge and education on how to involve in that themselves in that community.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah.
With you, what's next for KitKat?
So we've got our 3.1 event coming on September 28th. Same principle, but some slight changes. So we're going to a smaller venue. The idea being a little bit more sweaty, a little bit more intimate. It's going to make it tough when it comes to managing numbers, but it's a good problem to have. And then, I've got something else in the pipeline that I'm working on, which is another slight variation of what KitKat 3 and KitKat 1, 2, 3 and has been. And then mid next year, early next year, KitKat 4.
Exciting times.
Yeah, busy.
Can't wait to see what's next from you. Thanks again for coming on and chatting with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And good on you for trying to bring kink out of the shadows.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
And as always, stay kinky.